displaying the sequence number, the letter C, small letter C, and the actual step, in this case 14, 15, step 16, the little flashing dots up on the top are an indication that the scene is being faded on. So in other words, the speed of the sequence is limited by the fade speed of the lights and how fast they're actually moving. Now, if you see this translated into a servo, I don't want to get you dizzy here, but I gotta. You see how that's moving slow? If these were lights, when the dinosaur was all in one position, the light would be all the way off. Now the light would be getting brighter and brighter till it's at its full brightness. In the case of a servo motor, you get a left and right position instead of a brightness. I'm using servo motors because it's a little bit easier to see rather than a changing brightness, because the camera doesn't seem to pick it up very well. So just pretend these were 10 lights and they were going from all the way off to all the way on. And the amount of time that it takes for them to transition from one scene to the next, which is limited by their fade speed there. That is what is indicated by our flashing dots up here. Now I can change this while the sequence is playing. The F keys, F1 to F8, this is while a chase or a sequence is playing, determine that fade speed of the transition from one scene to another. F1 is the fastest, or actually instant on. I'm going to push this. You can see the servos are moving about as fast as servo motors can actually go. And if I press, say for example, F4, then they'll turn a little slower. Now you don't want to confuse the fade speed with the actual chase speed. Let's go back and set these to instant on, or so that there's no fade. And now the sequence is playing. Now again, if these were lights, they would be coming on full brightness instantly. It takes a certain amount of time for the servos to actually go into position. But you notice the time between each servo movement, which is the next scene, another scene, and another scene, is determined by our sequence speed. The number keys, this is again while the chase is playing, the F1 keys determine the fade speed, or the transition from scene to scene speed. The number keys determine the actual speed of the sequence. So I've got these so that they're coming on as fast as they can, which I say is limited because they're actual motors here. And I'm going to pick a rapid chase speed, and over here is the slowest speed. As you can see, the amount of time for each scene to occur from scene to scene, that's our chase speed. I'll speed this up a little faster. As I go towards the right here, it goes faster and faster and faster. So let's say, for example, let's hit the 9 because it's quite a bit faster. And so there isn't as much delay between the scenes. Let's go a little faster yet. A little faster. A little faster yet. fast chase speed, but we also have a fast transition speed. So now that we have our speed going fast, let's put some transition delay. I'm going to push the F7. Again, these motors go slow, so it's hard to notice the difference there too much. I'm going to press the F8, which puts it on its slowest page speed. Which is very slow. Space. This is the actual Mini D itself. It's rather tough, sealed in epoxy, weather tight, has some Velcro on here so it sticks onto your keyboard. As we mentioned, you don't really need to see this once you've got your scenes programmed, because you're really just looking at your letter keys to show one scene or the next. The Mini D, there's two wires coming out of it, and I'm trying to do this while I'm holding it, and one of the wires plugs into a Y connector. This is the power supply. It goes to a 5-volt USB adapter type power supply. This is also where you would plug in a computer if you want to use this with a PC to program the scenes using your computer, and then you can unplug the computer, plug the power supply in here, and use the keyboard on the Mini D to recall all of your scenes. That's a nice easy way to get the scenes programmed into the Mini D. And this wire here, this is where the keyboard plugs in. So coming from the Mini D, you have this wire here going into this Y connector to the computer / power supply. When it's plugged into the computer, the Mini D gets its power from the PC. When it's not plugged into the PC, it gets its power from a USB 5-volt power supply or any low voltage power source, and then the keyboard plugs in. The other wire coming from the Mini D is a DMX 512 type cable transitioning into a standard XLR type DMX connector. So you plug this into your chain of DMX lights, like so, and then the actual display on the Mini D, you notice I have the wires coming off to the left here. That's great, but what if you want to have the wires coming off like this? Things are upside down. Let me hit the space bar so we can see SPC to let us know we hit the space bar. What I can do is hit the caps lock key and watch what happens. It turns upside down. So, if I want to put the Mini D orientated this way, of course I'd have to have the Velcro on the other side. I'm left-handed, that's why the wire's coming off this way. But, if you want to put it this way, that's fine. Just hit the caps lock key, and then you can see it that way. That setting is retained during power off, so once you set it, you don't need to set it again until you decide that you want to change the position and have it this way. Again, caps lock key. Press that. Press it again, goes back the other way. Press it, goes that way. Press it, press it. So that's how you change the orientation of the display on the Mini D. Now again, at this neutral mode, when I hit space, all the lights are off, the sequences have stopped. This is where I can just press the scene key if I want, like A, and A, we go back to space. A turns this servo over here, which is on channel 1, all the way that way. So this actually is clearing all of the channels, turning all the lights off, so the first channel is going to be set to 0. Scene A is simply programmed with all of the channels again still being 0, but the first channel has a 255 in it. B, if I press the B key, I will recall the second scene. In the second scene, you see the second dinosaur move. However, the green one moved as well. That's because the second scene, scene B, is programmed so that all of the channels are off, including channel 1. And channel 2 has a 255, which causes the second servo to rotate. When I transition from A to B, channel 2 is going to 255, but channel A is going back to 0. If I start with all the channels being 0, and I did that by pressing the space bar, if I press A, this guy moves. Press the space bar, goes off. Press B, the second guy moves. Press the space bar, it goes off. When I press A and then B and then A and then B, because of just those 2 frames, it looks like they're going through a little bit more. C is the third servo, and you can see both A and B have returned to their 0 position. Same thing with D, which is the 4th position, and E, I'm just pressing the different letter keys here. E is the next scene, and F, the next one, G, the next one, H, all the way down there at the end, I, J. So, I'm going to press the space bar again, which is going to set them all back to 0. So whenever I press A or D or one of my scene keys, I'm going to get that movement. So if I want to make a simple sequence, what I could do is, again, I've hit the space bar, so I've got my SPC showing. What I do is I hit the home button. When I hit the home button, right over here, getting the camera lens, this starts recording my key presses. So now when I press scene keys, let's press A, let's press then C, and then say D. So I just want to play those three scenes. Then I want to save that sequence, and I can save it in any of these keypad locations over here. There's 16 different sequences I can save this in. I'm going to save this in 0. So I just press the 0 key. And what I've done is I've created and saved a sequence of just those 3 steps. And on my display here, the 0 indicates that I'm playing sequence 0. The C means I'm doing a chase and sequence, the same thing. And that I'm on step 0. It starts off as 0, step 2, which is the 0, 1, 2, which is A, B, and C. And you notice the little flashing light, the little decimal point flashing. That means that it's in a transition. It's the fade is on, so that the scenes are not instantly changing. While it's playing, press the F1 to make it so that it plays, as you can see now, it's playing quite a bit faster because each step isn't taking as long to execute. So I want to slow this down a little bit. So I'm going to hit, let's say for example, 5. As you can see here now, it's counting out the steps, but it's doing it at speed 5, which